Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. This is a regular meeting for City Council, May 23rd, 2023. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Harmon?
Here.
Councilmember Friedman?
Here.
Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Alejandro Gutierrez?
Here.
Councilmember Snedden?
Here.
Councilmember Jordan?
Here.
And Mayor Rouse.
Here. And I believe we have a couple of ceremonial items to read.
We do. We have two. The first is National Public Works Week, May 21 to 27, 2023.
You guys that wear your hard hats didn't recognize you. All right, it is National Public Works Week, May 21 through May 27, 2023. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services of vital importance to the sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the residents of the city of Santa Barbara. And whereas this year's 63rd Annual National Public Works Week theme is Connecting the World Through Public Works, highlighting the way public works professionals are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our city that connects us physically through infrastructure services and transportation, water, wastewater, disaster response and recovery, and right-of-way management. And whereas Public Works is resolved to preserve, improve, and enhance public infrastructure with approximately $500 million of projects underway, including sizable efforts such as the East Cabrillo Boulevard pedestrian and bicycle improvements, and the Milpa Street Crosswalk Safety and Sidewalk Widening Project, and water main replacements. And whereas Public Works essential field staff, as a critical city resource, provide vital services to the community every day by ensuring safe drinking water, reliable wastewater treatment to protect the public and environment, prompt expert service of emergency vehicles, and safe and clean public streets and sidewalks. And whereas Public Works' mission is to provide our community with a sustainable foundation to thrive by delivering quality services and public infrastructure through efficient and fiscally responsible practices. Now, therefore, I, Randy Rouse, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Santa Barbara, California, do hereby proclaim May 21 through 27, 2023 as National Public Works Week. I encourage local residents and civic organizations to recognize the importance of providing our public works and to recognize the contributions made daily to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, and always thank you for all the great support and resources you provide Public Works and the Public Works team to serve you and the community of Santa Barbara. I would have loved to have all 400 plus members of Public Works here. I think that would have been a little bit over the top. So I always ask my team to provide a few shining examples of the work we've done. With me today, we have Adam Muntz, who's a supervisor down at El Estero on the treatment side. We have Esteban Zambrano, who is a supervisor on the wastewater collection side. And then Edgar Benitez, who is a senior electric communications technician with our electronic maintenance branch and facilities and fleet. And as all of you know, the last 5 months have really tested the city out with certainly with the weather and the impacts that we've had. Last year I had members of the paving crew here. They were integral in that response. Our facilities crews were integral. A lot of times we forget about our electronics maintenance. We have infrastructure in some pretty tough spaces all the way up on the mountains behind us, everywhere, and they did a tremendous job keeping our communications, both our safety and just our phones, everything up and running through all that. And then on the wastewater side, as you know, how important all the effort that went in there. What a lot of people don't know is that 2 months ago, Southern Cal Edison lost the principal transformer that feeds El Estero. And therefore, we lost our Southern California Edison electrical feed to the plant. And the reason a lot of people don't know about it was because Adam and his team handled it so well. And my hat's off to Southern Cal Edison because they handled it really well. We got a temporary transformer in place in less than a week.
3 days.
Yeah, it was unheard of because this was a one-off transformer, huge. And then they ran that and then eventually got it back permanently set, and we're back up and running. So that happened seamlessly, and that's the way I like it. You don't have to know about it. We just take care of it, and we being these guys. So I just want to, representing all the public works, the extra work they do, just give them a big hand. Thank you again. All right, guys, appreciate it.
Our next ceremony item is item 2, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, May 2023.
Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, AAPI, are a diverse community tracing heritage to dozens of countries and regions, including China, India, Japan, the Philippines, Vietnam, South Korea, Polynesia, Melanesia, and Micronesia. And whereas the Congressional Gold Medal was awarded in 2011 to Japanese Americans who served through their families who were incarcerated in concentration camps under Executive Order 9066, awarded in 2017, to Filipino Americans who solely lost their military benefits due to the Recession Act of 1946, and awarded in 2020 to Chinese American veterans who were ineligible for citizenship when the war began due to the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. And whereas AAPI have always battled discrimination, litigating early immigration law, including birthright citizenship and the infamous Korematsu versus U.S. decision upholding internment, and united to create a single AAPI identity to fight injustice following the murder of Vincent Chin, for which the assailants received probation and a fine, but no time in jail. And whereas the first Asian to settle in Santa Barbara was Filipino Antonio Miranda Rodriguez, a founding pobladores of Los Angeles who arrived in Santa Barbara in 1783 and who was buried in the Presidio Chapel, after whom came many local Filipino residents and the creation of the Filipino Community Association, which remains active today at 425 State Street. And whereas in the 1860s, Chinese immigrants built a vibrant Chinatown on the first block of East Can Perdido that included mercantiles, laundries, a place of worship, and a community association, which was devastated and dismantled during the 1925 earthquake when the city chose to adopt a cohesive Spanish colonial revival look. And whereas Japanese residents settled in the blocks of 100 East Can Bernardino Street and 800 Anacapa Street in the early 20th century, enriching the area with a grocery store, barbershop, boarding house, billiard hall, and churches, up until April 1942, when local Japanese Americans were incarcerated at the Gila River concentration camp, after which only a few returned. And whereas the city of Santa Barbara represents the many cultural, economic, social, and educational contributions of Asian Americans and the Pacific Islanders to our community. Now, therefore, I, Randy Rouse, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Santa Barbara, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Month, and encourage residents to join in the celebration by participating in local AAPI events, reading about AAPI history, and rejecting prejudice. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse and members of the council, for your acknowledgement today of AAPI Heritage Month. My name is Karina Jew, and I am with the Santa Barbara AAPI Solidarity Network, along with Sharon Hoshida, Julia Batista, and Judy Guillermo Newton. We formed 2 years ago in response to the Atlanta spa shootings and other incidents of hate directed at the AAPI community. We held a vigil to honor the lives lost. We formed a network to help increase the visibility of the AAPI community and offer some mechanism of support during periods of heightened negativity against our community, especially since the start of the pandemic. And in fact, we have received reports of harassment, vandalism, and discriminatory treatment. And we've tried to direct people to resources, although frankly, the systems are not very responsive. But we keep trying. And while the spread of COVID-19 is now less of a concern, in its wake, anti-Asian and specifically anti-Chinese rhetoric has grown in this economic Cold War environment, resulting in new attempts at versions of the alien land laws of 100 years ago in multiple states that restrict the purchase of property by Chinese citizens, laws banning the admission of Chinese citizen students into universities in certain states, and targeting of Chinese scientists. These bills and sentiments are reminiscent of the days of the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Yellow Peril, and the incarceration of Japanese citizens during World War II. And while proponents claim these efforts are targeting the Chinese Communist Party and not American citizens, this distinction is not in play and never has been for we, the perpetual foreigners. Every incident locally that I have heard about includes the common refrain, "Go back where you came from," regardless if the victim was Chinese, Japanese, born here, or immigrated decades and decades ago. So today I come to you in the shadow of Allen, Texas, where 8 people, half of whom were Asian, were killed by someone with white supremacist views. And 1 year from the shootings in Uvalde that took the lives of 19 children and 2 teachers. Just a couple of months ago, we held a vigil after the Monterey Park and Half Moon Bay incidents where AAPI elders attacked other elders. We collaborated with Moms Demand Action against gun violence for this vigil. So as I come to you today, I'm asking that you please find ways to use your legislative powers to help prevent this endless cycle of violence. So while there's a lot of negative right now, there are still many things to celebrate and many activities and organizations that celebrate our community this month and throughout the year. And a couple of our other network members will share some of those activities with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So every year we have some exciting activities that celebrate our cultural history as well as bring connections to the Santa Barbara community. On June 11th, the Asian American Association of Santa Barbara County is having an event called Rap and Roll Party at the historic Pico Adobe at the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. And also under the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation, the Asian American Affinity Group in its 14th year is bringing the Asian American Film Series in July and the Asian American Neighborhood Festival in October. All of these events are always sold out, and it's a wonderful way to celebrate the rich cultural history of our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Santa Barbara City Council members. My name is Jill Stasinos, and I'm president of the Santa Barbara Way High Sister City Association. Our mission is to promote and encourage an ongoing relationship between the city of Santa Barbara and the city of Weihai in Shandong Province, China, by promoting activities designed to encourage the development of mutually beneficial academic, commercial, and cultural exchanges. One of the things that we're doing is the first Sunday of every month, we host a dim sum. We don't actually host it, people do have to pay for it. But we have a dim sum Sunday brunch at China Pavilion over here on Chapala Street, and the public is welcome to attend that. We also yearly have a Chinese New Year celebration to celebrate the new Chinese year. So again, the public is welcome to join us for that as well. And again, I want to thank you for proclaiming May as Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I'd like to show my appreciation for this. And we have done our part to contribute to our country. And in my case, I even gave the most significant part of my adult life as a member of our armed forces, just to show that we're part of this country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you and congratulations.
Mr. Mayor, there's a hand raised on Zoom, and I just need to check if it's someone who wants to speak on this item.
On this item, okay, very good. Please go
He
ahead.
just lowered his hand, so that's a no.
You have 3 minutes.
He won't be speaking on this item.
Oh. Okay. All right, very good. So with that, we will go to see if there are any changes to the agenda.
Mayor Rouse, as published, the agenda is slightly out of order. We will hear the report from the Ordinance Committee after we hear the pulled consent items. So the order will be consent, general public comment, pulled consent items, and then the Ordinance Committee report.
All right, thank you for that clarification. With that, we will move to consent calendar. You have some items to read, Madam Clerk?
We do. We have 4 items to read. Item 4, storage of personal property in public areas and ordinance adoption. The recommendation is that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara adding Chapter 9.96 to the Municipal Code to regulate the storage of personal property in public areas, in public places. Item 5, approving the management performance and compensation plan and authorizing portal-to-portal pay for sworn fire employees. This is an ordinance adoption. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara adopting the 2022 to 2024 management performance and compensation plan. Item 6, amendment to the restriction of oversized vehicles. This is an ordinance introduction. Recommendation that council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara amending Section 10.44.220 of the Santa Barbara Municipal Code pertaining to the restriction of oversized vehicle parking on city streets. And item 16, which is a consent public hearing. Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, TEFRA, hearing for Sanctuary Centers debt issuance. This is a resolution and agreement. And Mr. Mayor, would you please open the public hearing on this?
So opened. Would you read the item, please? Note the time and read the item.
Mayor Rouse, we actually have a public comment on that item, so I think we should, after the clerk reads it, we should pull it for after the general public comment to be heard.
Very good, thank you. I'll do that after public comments, so go ahead and read into the record.
Okay, the items, item 16, Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, hearing for Sanctuary Centers debt issuance. Again, it's a resolution and agreement. The recommendation is that Council A, conduct a TEFRA public hearing regarding the issuance by the California Enterprise Development Authority of certain revenue obligations in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $15 million for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, installation, furnishing, and equipping of 34 supportive low-income housing units and an integrated care clinic and certain other matters related thereto. B, adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving associate membership by the City of Santa Barbara in the California Enterprise Development Authority and the execution of an associate membership agreement relating to associate membership of the city in the authority. And C, adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving the issuance by the California Enterprise Development Authority of its revenue obligations for the benefit of Sanctuary Centers of Santa Barbara, Inc., in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $15 million for the purpose of financing the acquisition, construction, installation, furnishing, and equipping of 34 supportive low-income housing units and an integrated care clinic and certain other matters relating thereto. And that concludes the items to read.
Very good. And does anyone from council need to pull anything on consent? Are there any public requests to pulling? I do have one speaker slip for item 16, but is anything else need to be pulled on consent?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay.
If any of our Zoom viewers, listeners would like to speak on a consent calendar item, please raise your hand now. There are no hands raised.
Okay, and with that, we will go to general public comment for items that are not on our agenda.
Mayor Rouse, will you entertain a motion on the consent agenda for the items that you have not pulled?
Okay, we can do that, right. So items that are not pulled are all but item 16. Do I have a motion on consent?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Harmon, second by Sneddon. Oh, one of you guys? All right. Very good. I knew it was on my left hand somewhere. Okay, may we have the vote tabulation, please?
It should be on.
This is for all items save for 16.
Do you all have it on your screen? Should be. Hold on, let me try it again.
It's supposed to be the ease and wonder of the communication generation.
I know, I can call it by, I'm not sure why. Okay, let me try one other thing.
I don't think we actually even need a roll call. We can do a consensus vote if we need to. Would you just call for the vote, please?
Yes, I can call the vote. Councilmember Harmon?
We don't need a roll call, actually. We can just do
You just
a-
want, okay.
Yeah.
Mayor Rouse, you actually have ordinance adoption, so you do need a roll call?
Okay, we need a roll call. We'll go to roll call. One in every crowd.
It's our first day.
Councilmember Harmon? Yes. Councilmember Friedman?
Yes.
Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Alejandra Gutierrez? Yes. Councilmember Sneddon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan?
Yes.
And Mayor Rouse.
Aye. All right, very good. Now, we do actually have a comment on a poll consent item, which is number 16 by Frank Thompson. Mr. Thompson, you have 3 minutes at the podium.
Thank you. I'm afraid I might have disrupted your process here. So I'm the financial consultant for Sanctuary Centers. I'm here today with Barry Shore, the executive director, and Karen Neal, the CFO, just to answer any questions you might have about item 16. This is a necessary step for us to have First Republic Bank issue or purchase the proceeds or make the proceeds available of the tax-exempt bonds, which helps us to work with First Republic Bank and lowers the cost of the project over a long period of time. So if you had any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you much.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll go ahead and do a vote on item 16.
I'll move item 16.
Moved by Friedman, second by Harmon. Madam Clerk?
Okay, we'll do this again this way, just because I'm still having issues. Councilmember Friedman?
Yes.
Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Alejandra Gutierrez? Yes. Councilmember Sneddon?
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember Harmon?
Yes.
And Mayor Rouse.
Yes. Okay, very good. And that closes consent. May we have a,
Ordinance Committee report.
may we have a report from the Ordinance Committee, please?
Mayor Rouse, we haven't done general public comment. Do you want to, I do not
I'm
see
sorry,
any.
one more time?
but We have not done general public comment for items
we
not
have.
on the agenda. I do not have any, and I do not see any hands raised on the, oh, we
I
have one.
called for public comment earlier on the general.
For general public comment, we have not done.
I have called for that,
Okay,
opened and closed it.
thank you.
I think you only called for public comment for item 16,
I
Mr.
actually
Mayor.
called, well, I'll do it again, but I did call for general, and there were none here and none raised. So, is that correct, Ms. Kovacs? I did it, so. Do you have somebody over there, Ms. Bjork?
I don't have anybody on Zoom
You do not, or you, I'm sorry, you do?
for
Mayor
general.
Rouse, I see one hand raised on Zoom.
I believe that is for item 16. Are we on item 16 then? We're
Okay,
good to
go ahead
move?
and bring that on for item 16 then.
Okay. We,
And
We
we
just
haven't-
acted, can
we
you
haven't
just ask
voted
him
on
what
item
he's
16
on,
yet.
what he wants to speak on, please, Ms. Kovacs?
sure. Mr. Governor, I'm unmuting you. You can unmute yourself and let us know which item you're wanting to speak on currently.
Hi, I'm trying to make general public comment. I believe there was a very brief moment where the mayor mentioned general public comment, but then the clerk interrupted, so.
Go right ahead.
Thanks.
You may proceed with your general public comment.
Great, thanks so much. Good afternoon, Mayor Ruff and City Council. My name is Alex Gravener. I live on the Lower East Side. My comment today is in response to the council's discussion a few weeks ago regarding the 425 Santa Barbara Street property, which is to be built with no parking. It saddened me that the discussion revolved mostly around ensuring that new residents of the property would not impact existing parking. I think it's very normal to worry about how change is going to impact what we have now. However, I think the council and we as a city are too stuck in the present and are losing sight of the future. There are two things that the appellant mentioned that are quite concerning. First, that area has one bus stop with one route that stops once an hour. No wonder we're worried about parking. It's the only way to get around this town. Second, the high density overlay along Haley and Gutierrez is zoned to potentially house as many people as live in Santa Barbara currently. With that kind of density, the luxury that is personal vehicles is simply unrealistic. I think it's clear that this corridor is going to need a massive investment in transportation. How are these residents going to get to their jobs, go grocery shopping, get to the beach, engage in public socialization, and otherwise live a full life? If the city doesn't have a plan, residents will have no other option than to buy gas-guzzling cars and crowd the city streets. So rather than letting that happen and dealing with the consequences, let's start planning now. There are many possibilities. A frequent loop route between State and Milpas running on Haley and Gutierrez would connect the most vibrant parts of our city and help keep these residents connected. That corridor currently has 5 D-cycle stations, which is far too few to accommodate potentially thousands of residents. We could require monthly bus passes for residents in the zone that don't have parking, say $20 to $50 a month or income adjusted. The city is short on funds now, and that kind of cash flow injection could give our bus system the shot in the arm it needs. Regardless of the solution, it's clear that this area really needs to be looked at, and not only for transit. We also need to consider utilities, amenities, public safety, emergency planning, and much more. But at a bare minimum, I'm hoping that the City Council will direct the Transportation Committee to look at this corridor and find real solutions so that residents can realistically live here without cost. Thank you for your time.
All right, very good. Are there further public commenters online? Karen, yes.
Can I ask that commenter to please send us an email of what you just said? Thank you.
All right, very good. And with that, we will then take a vote on item 16. And I had before. We already voted on it. Did we get that vote in? There was a lot of noise
You
going
did
on.
vote
so
on
I don't
16.
know. All right, very good. So with that, we're going to move on to item 17. If you would read that, and I have a, well, actually, let me introduce something first as we read this item 17. This is really an unusual,
Mr. Mayor, did you want a
What's that?
report from Ordinance Committee?
oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Print the thing right the
It's
first time.
okay.
Okay, report from Ordinance Committee, please.
There's a lot going on today,
Yeah.
so bear with us. So the Ordinance Committee went over the amendment to the Single Family Design Board appeal process. We unanimously voted to carry it to full council for further discussion.
All right, thank you. And with that, are there any council committee assignment reports?
Yeah.
Ms. Snedden?
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. We attended, I'm just going to list them all because it's just quicker to do it here. The Santa Barbara City College commencement, City Hall open house, participated in library PSA, attended Peace Officer Memorial, the State Street Advisory Committee meeting last night. Tomorrow will be unveiling of some renderings that should be of interest to the public, and also attend the Eucalyptus Hill annual meeting.
Any further? Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes, I attended several of those with Councilmember Snedden as well. Attended the UCSB Lunch and Learn with Councilmember Friedman. attended the Access Advisory Committee meeting where they discussed an item that we're going to be discussing today, and also attended the State Street Food and Beverage Committee meeting where they discussed their opinion about outdoor dining. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, very good. Any further? Mr. Friedman?
Since we're listening, I also attended the Police Officers Memorial Week, and then the UCSB Government Relations Tour of Coal Oil Point, and Standing Together to End Sexual Assault annual event, and then also attended the Smart Coast California Sea Level Rise Local Coastal Planning Conference, and was a presenter to kick off that conference on the work that I'm a part of between local government and the Coastal Commission, and the work we're doing to try to promote sea level rise planning and improvements to the local coastal planning process. So that was a really informative conference.
And further community assignment reports? All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 17. Before we get going, this is a rather unusual situation we're in this process. I'm going to ask that anyone who wishes to speak on one of these items fill out a speaker slip now and present it to Ms. Bjork. And if not, we'll proceed. I'm going to have the clerk read the item. The first item is actually refers to one of the facilities in question, but then I have a speaker that wants to speak to the general item. So, Ms. Kovacs, if you would, please read the first item, and then we're going to have Mr. Kuntz speak.
Item 17, appeal of the suspension of authorization to operate and maintain an outdoor business facility at Taza Restaurant at 413 State Street.
All right, very good. And before we start into this item, I'm going to let Mr. Kuntz put his 2 cents in with us. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, esteemed council members. I want to recognize that, Mr. Mayor, you were not present in chamber when this mess began. However, I do hope that your leadership may help bring an end to it. The rest of you were here on May 19th, 2020, when I asked you to consider accessibility in the proposed changes to the outdoor dining. I reminded you then that federal and state laws require that even temporary changes for a single-day event must be accessible. I shared a concern that the proposed ordinance would effectively undermine the well-established systems intended to assure accessibility. For 3 long years, I have consistently advocated for equal access to the city's outdoor dining program. While most of you have expressed empathy, none of you have ever taken sufficient action to correct the problem of your making. At every opportunity, you have chosen to put the financial interests of a few above the civil rights of many. These appeals should be the end of the line for those who have tried our patience for far too long. Yet some of you will no doubt feel empathy for the appellants, show leniency, and invite this process to continue indefinitely. I often wonder why I bother to waste my breath and time here. But if I don't, who will? 1 in 2 people over the age of 65 are disabled. So odds are that every one of you will eventually experience disability at some point in your life, or most of you will. I sincerely hope that none of you ever have to fight as hard as I do every day for equal access. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, a reminder before we get into this, if you want to speak to a specific item, I'm going to need a speaker slip. And with that, I'm going to try to introduce how we want to do this. So these are 6 appeals. They're all individual cases. We'll take them one by one regarding the ADA notifications on these various parklets. I will say this, that as council, we have demanded that staff get out there and enforce. We've repeated that many, many times over the months and instructed staff and Ms. Clark specifically to get out there and do it as she would report the numbers of non-compliant parklets. Many of the parklets, the lion's share of parklets, of course, are in fact in compliance. Other projects around town that are awaiting permits for something as simple as striping parking lots and whatnot, but are held up even with professional engineering sometimes in the process because of ADA requirements, are also there. So we have to maintain some level of consistency, especially when we enforce a law that isn't our law, it's the law of the land. And it's up to us, it's incumbent on us to do that. With that, I noticed that in many of the appeals, as I read the staff report, there were mentions of how things were noticed. And I'm going to ask our city attorney if you would tell us exactly what constitutes notice in a situation like this. Ms. Knecht, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just as a little introduction, so each of these appeals are being brought under the ERETO, or the Economic Recovery Extension and Transition Ordinance. Section 7 of that ordinance provides for the appeals that are being brought today. Each of the actions being appealed is a notice issued by the city administrator to suspend the operation. Under Section 7 of the ERETO, the city administrator is vested with the power to suspend the operation after more than 2 enforcement actions. So an enforcement action under Section 7 of the ERETO is allowed to be given under the Municipal Code Ordinance, Chapters 1.25 and 1.28. Under those specific ordinances, notice is to be provided under Section G of Ordinance Chapter 1.25, which provides that service of notice shall be provided by mail, personal service, or posting in the manner provided in the administrative guidelines. So service of process can be provided in any of those 3 manners. We have reviewed the notice that was provided in each of these 8 instances, and it was all provided by certified mail and personal delivery, or posting on the premises. So I think in each of the instances that the notice was posted on the premises and certified mail, but at least it was posted on the premises. So in addition to that, the notice, Section B of subsection B of Section 7 provides that when a notice of suspension is provided, it is to be posted on the premises 24 hours prior to the notice of suspension. And I think in all instances that was happened, and you have in your packet photographs of the posting on the premises.
All right, thank you very much for that clarification. So this is the way it'll go. We will have staff present each case, and then we will ask questions of staff. If there is then a speaker to that item, we'll hear the speaker. And then our direction is to vote up or down. It's not to try to reinvent the wheel or try to redo an ordinance. All right? So with that, we'll begin with item number 17, which you've already read. So then I will ask staff to address item 17.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse and council members. My name is Sarah Clark. I'm the city's downtown plaza and parking manager. I am here today with Megan Salas, who is our parking program supervisor. So back in 2022, you adopted Economic Recovery Extension and Transition Ordinance, which is the ERETO. And that's the ordinance that allows the temporary parklets to operate in the street until the end of this year. So that ordinance, along with the parklet guidelines that have been approved by the city administrator, require all parklets to be fully accessible to people with disabilities in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and the California Building Code. So these requirements have been in place since day one, all the way back in 2020 when the first emergency ordinance enabled construction of parklets. They've always had to be accessible. So none of these are new requirements that have been placed on the businesses. Over the past 6 months or so, the city has made a major effort to inspect every parklet and to make sure that they are compliant with accessibility requirements, and we've undertaken enforcement measures on the ones that were found not to be. So the ERETO provides that any business that is subjected to 2 or more enforcement actions can have their authorization to operate in the right-of-way suspended, as Ms. Knecht described. And that's why we're here today. So following a lengthy enforcement process, we issued removal notices to 7 businesses who failed to make their facilities accessible to people with disabilities. 6 of those businesses have appealed their suspension as the ERETO allows. And so in a moment, I'm going to hand it over to Megan Salas, who's going to give you an overview of that enforcement process and the current status of businesses that have appealed. And then following the overview, we're going to give you a brief summary of the enforcement history for each appellant, after which each appellant will have 3 minutes to state the case for their appeal to you, and then you can make your decision. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ms. Salas.
And if you would, bear in mind that we're going to take each one of these as a separate item. Thank you.
Hi. So first, just wanted to go over the timeline for enforcement from the first initial inspection through the removal notice. It takes about 3 to 6 months. After the initial inspection, a notice of violation is issued, and that has a 30-day compliance deadline. Then the first follow-up inspection, if they are still found to not be in compliance, we issue the first administrative citation, which has a 15-day compliance deadline. We have a second follow-up inspection, which, if they are still found to not be in compliance, a second administrative citation is issued with, again, a 15-day compliance deadline. And we have then a final inspection. If they are still found to not be in compliance, we issue the removal notice, which there is 1 week to remove the facility from the time that that is issued. So enforcement actions are communicated to the businesses as required by the Santa Barbara Municipal Code. First, the notice of violation, which is issued at the initial inspection, that is hand-delivered. And we also take that time, as it is the initial inspection, to explain in person to somebody at the business what the violations are. We go over them in detail and talk about how to remedy the violations. Administrative citations are issued hand-delivered to the business, as well as certified mail to the agent of record. Removal notices are hand-delivered, and we also emailed some of them and posted on the facility. So we'll address each of these individually in each separate appeal, but I want to give a quick overview of the compliance status as of today. Caudario, Foxtail, and Trattoria Vittoria have resolved their violations. Folded Hills Winery has taken down their facility due to the roundabout construction, but as of their last day in operation, they were non-compliant. Courthouse and Taza are still not in compliance. So I want to review the 2 options today as we go through the appeals. As this appeal addresses a suspension and not a permit, the appeal cannot be upheld conditionally. The available options are to uphold the appeal and overturn the suspension, or deny the appeal and uphold the suspension. I would like to note that if the appeal is upheld, any future ADA violations would revert back to step 1 of the enforcement process. So now that we have discussed the enforcement process, we will review the enforcement and violations history of each business as we proceed through the appeals. The first appeal of the day is Taza.
Before you begin, you mentioned that a few of those were in compliance. Was that in compliance after the notice of removal?
Correct. We went out and inspected them as early as today, or as late as today as well, just to confirm compliance. And as of today, that is the current status.
I'm just trying to wonder what the relevance is to what we're talking about today. I mean, I understand that we'd rather have people in compliance than not, but we have a procedure, so I'm a little confused.
Mayor Rouse, that was provided for your information. We figured that that was a question that council would likely have, and the appellants would likely raise when they came up to state their case. So we wanted to confirm through inspection whether or not that was the case.
All right, thank you. Please go ahead.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I don't
Mr.
have
Jordan?
the button anymore. Could I just ask a global question on the way you're setting these up before we get into the individual
Well, I
ones?
would just refer to that one slide where, because we're deciding on appeals and non-appeals, up or down. And then there's that in compliances almost begs a nuance, between the city attorney and I, there's not nuance today. so-
Before we get to each individual one, I would have a question.
Okay, if you would, go ahead.
Okay, so I heard two different things on notifications. I heard the city attorney say that notifications were both certified mail and posted. And then I heard you just say that the two notifications, the notification and a notice of violation, were hand-delivered, and the first one was hand-delivered with a personal explanation. The citation was hand-delivered in certified mail, and the third one was hand-delivered in certified mail. So we don't certified mail the first one, the notice of violation?
Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Jordan, that's correct.
Okay.
We provide that in person. So that's an NOV, a notice of violation. It's not an administrative citation, so it doesn't have the same requirements for delivery.
And then the in-person for all of these, so I don't have to ask on every one of them, you hand-delivered and you made an in-person contact with somebody at the business. The business was open and you made a hand delivery to a live body.
Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Jordan, yes, we did.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Jordan, if I could clarify on that question too, for the administrative citation, which is different from the initial notice of violation, the administrative citation, which two were issued for each of the operations, the requirement is personal service or service by certified mail or service by posting. So only one of the three is
Yeah,
required.
I get that,
Okay.
but I think what you said is we did, of those three, we did certified mail and posting, and what staff is saying is they hand-delivered
Right.
and certified mail. Okay, there's a little difference between hand-delivered and posting in my
Right.
mind.
We just want to make
Okay.
sure there's
Yep.
the requirement, and then they went over and
I
above.
get that. I just want to make sure what we did within those requirements. Thank you.
All right, very good. So please continue, Ms. Hollis.
So for Taza Restaurant, we had the initial inspection in November, on November 30th, 2022, and we did issue a notice of violation for a gap at the transition greater than a half-inch and no accessible table. As you can see in the photos here, all of the tables provided are pedestal tables. Pedestal tables do not allow for the required under-table clearance. So we did a follow-up inspection on January 19th, 2023, and they had actually fixed the gap at the transition, but they still did not provide an accessible table. We issued the administrative citation on January 31st with a correction deadline of February 14th. We had our follow-up inspection on February 23rd, at which time we noted there was no change. Issued a second administrative citation on March 13th, and with a correction deadline of March 29th. Follow-up inspection was on April 7th, and there was still no change. There was still no table provided. So we posted the removal notice on April 17th. Also, I'd like to additionally mention on this particular one, as it is on State Street, it's a little bit different than the others. They were required to submit an application for an outdoor business license, outdoor business facility license by May 1st, and they have not yet submitted that application.
That's it for that presentation for that one. Okay, very good. Do we have questions of staff about item number 17? Mr. Jordan.
So I'll ask thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask the same question on each one of these, but the citations carry a fine. Have the fines been paid by this or any, we can ask that on each one. If you would offer that on each one, that would be great, but have these citations been paid for this one?
Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Jordan, unfortunately, I do not have that information with me today on whether those have been paid or not.
On any of them then?
No, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For a restaurant, I guess just this restaurant who didn't submit the application to continue or to become a permitted outdoor dining facility, maybe this is a question for the restaurant, but would they be able to continue operating, given that they have not made that application anyway? I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, is this a moot vote because they didn't submit the application to continue? So they don't have no intention, it would seem, of continuing regardless of how we vote today.
Yes, Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Harmon, we did give a deadline of initially May 1st to have both the application submitted and a meeting scheduled to execute the license agreement. So at this point, any business that has not submitted a license agreement is technically, or an application at least, and gotten that meeting on the books, is technically in violation. So we're actually about to begin the process of issuing notice of violation for that, with the goal of those facilities that have not complied receiving removal notices in June. So yes, they are at this point also in violation of that requirement.
All right, if there are no further questions, I don't have any speakers for this item. Do we have online?
We have one hand online, Jim Nell. If you would like to speak on this item, please keep your hand raised. If not, please lower your hand. Okay. Mr. Nell, you can unmute yourself and begin to speak.
Thank you. My comment is really about all of these proposed violations or appeal requests with respect to the ones that are in violation. And I think that for me, who represent quite a few, not only large properties that we have here in Santa Barbara.
Right, sir, we're speaking specifically to item 17, which is the Taza Restaurant.
I'm talking specifically to item 17, but I'm
Okay.
also talking, this is a general comment with respect to, let me just speak to 17, which will be the same for the rest of them.
Okay.
What the optics that you're talking about with respect to this even hearing is basically allowing people to continue operating a building that are not in compliance with what is required. There is not one instance as a property owner and as a representative who has quite a few businesses that operate on State Street that is allowed to require when they're in violation. What you're doing, the optics are horrible. You're sending the wrong message. You're allowing people to skirt the requirements and still operate a business. Nowhere in the city process are you allowed to do this. I think this is egregious that they're even asking for it. This should be denied just on optics only. It's a question of equity and doing the right thing for everyone, just not a few who choose not to participate or comply. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speakers online on item 17?
There are no further speakers online.
Okay, and with that, I will take a motion, if there are, unless there's further comment, entertain a motion on this to uphold or deny, but
Mr. Mayor, we do have one additional public speaker on this item.
okay, for anyone else that I mentioned before, and this will be the last warning, I need a speaker slip now if you intend to speak on one of these items. We're right here. Okay, and then give it to Ms. Bjork if you would. Go ahead, sir.
Just start whenever. Well, firstly, I apologize for not filling out a card. My name was listed on the pamphlet, so I figured that.
That's why I asked for these.
I am one of the owners over at Taza, so unfortunately, this specific situation is mine to deal with. There's really no excuse for it. I wish there was, but there just isn't. We had a series of bad management up until as recent as last month. I actually didn't find out about these issues until the certified mails came in. So I didn't even know that one of them had even been addressed. I actually came with notes written in regards to those issues, and one of them was the half-inch gap, which as of this morning I thought was still there. We had initially, when we built the thing, had it fixed, or had it in compliance. The table is an oversight. I didn't realize that they weren't in compliance, and we have since gotten rid of those managers. There's two of them,
And yeah, I mean, that's really just it. In regards to the time from when we got the compliance notices, at least at my home down in Los Angeles, we are absentee owners. And when I got the removal notice again at my home, it's not an excuse. I've gone through a series of very unfortunate family events. My parents were hospitalized, both of them. My newborn baby was hospitalized, and I shut down everything. I didn't really worry about anything that was going on at any of my businesses.
So,
I have 3 restaurants. Taza is one of them. The other 2 are fully in compliance with everything. We're great on applications, all that jazz. We don't make these kinds of mistakes. It's just that when family kind of goes through stuff, I just kind of shut down, and that's really it. I know that it's a very unfair thing to ask, to be able to correct our issues, submit the proper applications, and get everything in order. It's a lot to ask to even have this be heard and considered, so I thank you guys all for that, even if the outcome is a no. But ultimately, I just want everyone to know at the very, very, very least that none of it was done on bad faith and none of it was done ill-mannered. From someone who's been in the middle of an ADA lawsuit, I'm very, very compliant on all those things. This was many years ago, so it's just an unfortunate series of events that sort of left us here, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there further speakers on this item? Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, very good. With that, I'll entertain a motion whether to deny or uphold the appeal. May I have a motion? Oh, and we have somebody speak. Ms. Snedden.
I'll move to deny the appeal.
Okay, first motion by Snedden. Mr. Gutierrez?
Sorry, can I have
Second.
clarification? What denying or upholding results in what exactly?
So denying the appeal upholds the staff recommendation.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna have to not vote to shut it down because I've spoken to the businesses and I know how difficult it is, especially on that 400 block of State Street. I'm just speaking because it is my district, and I've spoken to those business owners, and I know that it has not been treated the same as the other blocks and the other streets, and I appreciate the business owner coming to personally speak on his behalf and explain what the circumstances were, and I feel that I think there was obviously errors made on their behalf, but he made it clear that he's rectifying it. So I will not be upholding the appeal. Is that right? I will not deny.
You'll be upholding the appeal.
I will be upholding the appeal. Sorry.
Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too can't find a way through this to not to not deny the appeal also. Multiple chances were given. It's clear to me that
Mayor Russ, I don't think you have a second yet to debate the motion.
I thought we had, okay, it was Snedden was
then
the
I'll
first.
second and keep talking.
Jordan second.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's clear to me, that staff has provided multiple opportunities over a long, long, long time for a process that didn't even need noticing because it's law. And with that, I'll just say it's a tough way to start the hearing because, I so appreciate you standing up and laying down on your sword and sharing your personal life, but it's just procedurally not a place I'm willing to go, as unfortunate that may be for you personally, but I do want to thank you for the tone and the form of your comments. It's not gone unappreciated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. I have a quick question for the city attorney. Just in general, should the the appeals all be denied, anyone gets denied, they would have the ability to go through and reapply through the new standards?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Friedman, that would be correct. Should the appeal be denied and the suspension be upheld, then the operation would need to be removed. And presumably, they could, in accordance with the ERETO and the guidelines, depending on where they're located, they could come in accordance with, for as long as, the ERETO currently expires the end of December of this year. So, but for the duration of the ERETO and the guidelines, they could rebuild, reinstall a new business facility, outdoor business facility, or parklet, depending on where they're located, in accordance with all the new requirements.
The new guidelines, okay, thank you. And that's not something we can consider on this, obviously. I just wanted to know what the options were.
Correct.
So on this one, this is one of the most difficult, I guess, council meetings that we've been through because it's unique. But I'm with my colleagues in that I don't find a way where I continue to allow them to go forward. I think Mr. Kuntz is right. It's a civil rights issue, and these should have been going back to 2020 from day one, and we went through this many times, and we've had a tough issue getting compliance. And I understand appreciate the owner coming forward today, but I just don't find a way where I can support that, being that it is federal laws and civil rights issues.
Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief as well. I'm in agreement with our colleagues who have spoken to deny the appeal. It is a very difficult conversation to be having. I think just the line has to be drawn somewhere, and this is the line that we not only articulated via our ordinance, but had many, many, many conversations about from this dais. And I think to do anything other than deny the appeal at this point would just eliminate not only any moral authority we might have, but also any actual authority we have to effectuate the rules that we are obligated, rules and laws that we are obligated to enforce in our city. So that is where I am, but I do want to echo Councilmember Jordan in my thanks to the owner for his honesty in coming forward. I very, very much appreciate that and can imagine how difficult this is, and just really thank you for doing that. And I hope that we can move forward with you in a productive way and really look forward to strengthening the partnership between your business and our city for the benefit of the community. So thank you.
All right, very good. No, you're not.
Is this a time to make general comments about, it seems like or just about this one particular?
We have a motion on the floor, so we need to handle the motion first.
Okay.
But I will allow a general comment after this, so before we go on to the next one, because hopefully we can clean this conversation up, because these are not very different, and the decision is not complex. So we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you put the thing up?
Yes, thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Sneddon, seconded by Councilmember Jordan to deny the appeal. And this is for item 17.
Okay, it passes 6-1. Gutierrez descending.
Very good.
All right, very good. Let's move on to item 18. Ms. Hollis.
Ca Dario Restaurant is next. The initial inspection was on November 9th, 2022. At that time, we observed an abrupt vertical edge in excess of a ½ inch at the entrance of the facility, and originally no accessible table was provided. The follow-up, so we issued a notice of violation on that. The follow-up inspection was on January 19th. There was no change at that time. We issued a first administrative citation on January 31st with a correction deadline of February 14th. At the follow-up inspection on February 23rd, a new table was provided, but it was not ADA compliant. As you can see in the photo, it has brackets underneath the table. Those brackets do not allow for the required clearance of 30 inches across and 19 inches deep. So we issued a second administrative citation on March 13th with a compliance deadline of March 29th. At the follow-up inspection on April 7th, there was no change. There was not a new table provided. After the removal notice was issued, a compliant table was put in, and we did inspect the facility today and found that a compliant table had been provided.
All right. Any questions for staff on this one? Mr. Jordan?
So I just want to reiterate on this. I didn't really look this closely at the exhibits you did, but so that first photo is literally like a 3.5-inch ledge coming off the sidewalk, right? And a month, and so 45 days-ish after you provided both a hand-delivered with a hand-delivered notice and an in-person explanation, that was still there, right?
Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Jordan, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Jordan, I just want to make sure you're understanding the first photo correctly. That's not a 3-inch lip there. That's a lip that's a little bit greater than 1/2 of an inch. So it's the smaller transition from the pavement to the side, to the
That
wooden part of the
line's not
facility.
that line's not the edge that goes horizontally, huh?
It's
There's another line there that I'm not seeing as clearly, right?
It is kind of a little hard to see in that, but
Okay.
it's the dark edge along the bottom.
Got it. All right. But still present 40-plus days later.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you.
Apologies for the confusion.
Okay, further questions for staff? We do have, I believe, did you fill out for 2 speakers, Simon? Was that the? Okay, come on up, please. I wasn't sure what the little 2 meant behind it, but.
All right. Good afternoon, and appreciate the time. My name is Simon Clark, no relation to Sarah. I act as COO for the Filati Group of Restaurants, Dario is sitting in the back. I'm also a co-owner in one of the establishments in Goleta. Cadario Restaurant's been in business since 1997. It's been a mainstay of fine dining. It's been innovative. It has a very loyal following. And during the pandemic, the Parklet was part of the retention of that loyalty, and it continues to be so today. Mr. Filati himself is integrated into the community. He gives his time and skills to various endeavors, CAMA, the Policemen's Federation, and most recently Katie's Fund, which provides education to people with learning disabilities. So we are finely tuned into the needs of the disability community, and we take this matter extremely seriously. You have the relevant documents in your package, so you know the format that it was delivered. On November the 9th, as we said, at 1:55, the initial citation was delivered to us. At 4:52 on that same day, we engaged a contractor, Jim Nigro. Jim Nigro came out and resolved the matter of the ramp on November the 11th. He shaved down the 1/2 inch. However, there was a period of circumstance that intervened later in the year with the rain, and I'll get to that in just a minute. We were not provided with, and I'm just going to illustrate this to you, our good neighbor Renault, when his was inspected, was provided with this, which is a clear description of what an ADA table should look like. We did not get one of those. So in good faith, we went to ACE, asked for an ADA compliant table, and you saw the one that we were given. So did we follow up and make sure that it was compliant? No, we didn't. We possibly should have done, but in good faith, we purchased it. So we believed that we had changed the angle of the ramp. We believed that we had a table. Second inspection comes along. Certain things had happened. One, the notice of inspection was given to someone. We have not been able to find that person. Where there's a lot of construction going on, it could have been a construction worker. We never actually saw that. On the 30th, a letter was delivered to Michael Forver, Another problem, the address given to Michael Forver is the restaurant. Clearly, Michael Forver's attorney, he does not work out of the restaurant. The certified mail was returned to sender. So we were somewhat unaware of what was going on. The next inspection, two things happened. As you remember, in December and January, we had a lot of rain in Santa Barbara. When the inspection took place, one, the screws, the wood had swollen, the screws started protruding from the wood, and the wood swelled. So we failed that because the screws seemed to provide some measure of danger, and the wood was swollen. The second thing, which was human error, and I apologize, am I out of time?
Just go ahead and finish up your thought, if you would, please.
So the second thing was that one of our associates decided that they would fold up the table and put it in the office. So two things happened. The ramp, albeit was compliant. Two, the table that we thought was compliant had been put in the office for safekeeping. We have subsequently purchased another ADA compliant table. As these ladies attested today, we are in full compliance now. We apologize and regret the fact that we were not. We did assiduously try and correct all of these faults. We have to say that there is human error. We have to say that we did our best, and we have to ask your indulgence that we may be able to retain the parklet, pay whatever fine is ensuing from it, and continue our business. Thank you. I apologize for going over time.
All right, thank you. Comments from council. Mr. Friedman.
A question for the city attorney. On the issue of the certified letter, were we able to verify that it was returned and never accepted? And, well, one, yes or no on that?
Councilmember Friedman, the record does reflect that it was returned to sender.
And being that the process is to have that letter, does that impact the process in any way because it showed that they might not have ever read the second letter if it was returned?
No, the process is personal service or service by mail certified or service by posting. So what we can establish is that the notice was delivered also to the location and certified mail, but the certified mail was returned.
Okay, so one of the processes was established. And was it
Correct, although
posted?
they're alleging that they did not receive it at the location. So, but, you know, according to our records, there was actual delivery of the notice. Yeah.
And was there a posting, because some of these were posted? Or in this case, was it just the
Mayor
certified
Rouse, Councilmember Friedman, the only one that was a physical posting was the removal notice, so that was physically posted on the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sneddon.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I move to deny the appeal.
Okay, that's a motion by Sneddon. Do I have a second? Mr. Jordan?
So I'll second, and, you know, you guys make me do every one, and then you vote for these. I'm going to hate you forever. But, you know, the theme, when we get to two of these already, is, in my opinion, is a lack of oversight compared to the benefit you've been given to operate in a city space. It comes with, that operation in a city space comes with additional responsibilities that probably are not being maintained in your regular restaurant then, if you're not getting this connection over the gift of city space to you for 2.5 years, and the response to these processes being, oh, we just missed that, oh, we didn't catch that. It's just a lack of oversight. And I have no confidence going forward so far in these two that anything would be remedied. So I'll as I continue to hear that, I'm going to continue to support denial. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it seems clear to me the part of the argument was about noticing. I think the clerk cleared that up, and there was also a couple of things that were like weather-related or whatever, and I can sympathize with the conditions of the world in general, but it really is pretty clear, and you know, Dario's is one of my favorite places to eat, so I've been up there a few times since the notice has been put up. And And I would hate to, I hate to do this too, but it is. These are black and white situations to me. Unless staff can tell me that they didn't do that or made mistakes, then I don't know how I uphold an appeal in this situation. So with that, we have a first and a motion and a second on the floor. We have the vote, please.
This is for item 18. It is a motion by Councilmember Sneddon, seconded by Councilmember Jordan to deny the appeal. Go ahead and vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Can we go to item 19, please?
Item 19, appeal of the suspension of authorization to operate and maintain a parklet at Folded Hills Winery at 1294 Coast Village Road.
Salas.
So Folded Hills was initially inspected on December 12th, 2022. And at that time, we found that there was no ramp provided. So we issued a notice of violation on that. There was a follow-up inspection on January 25th, at which point also no ramp was provided. First administrative citation was issued January 31st with a correction deadline of February 14th. The follow-up inspection on March 8th, we did find a ramp was provided, but it was non-compliant. The width that is required is 48 inches, and the ramp provided was 36 inches. It was also at a slope that would have required handrails. The second administrative citation was issued on March 13th with a correction deadline of March 29th. At the follow-up inspection on April 7th, no ramp was provided again. And that was consistent with we made numerous visits out there after we were informed that there was a ramp to try to find out if the ramp was compliant or not, and more often than not, we did not find the ramp provided. So the removal notice was issued on April 17th. We could not, as of May 8th, they were still not in compliance, but they've removed their facility at this point due to the construction of the roundabout.
All right, very good. Are there any questions for staff? I do have a public speaker on this, Andrew Bush.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Appreciate your time today. I have with me my son, Andy Bush Jr., and Linda, who runs the Montecito Folded Hills store. The one thing I just noticed at 11:24, we don't open until midday because the ramp that we provided, that we understand after the fact was not ADA correct. That was there all the days we were open after you guys told us about that, but we opened at noon, so it was always brought out during our open hours. Linda just informed me of that. There's no doubt that we had some screw-ups here in communication. Ms. Sneeden and I, we talked, and there were some differences of opinions. We believe we're in a unique circumstance because of the construction at Olive Mill Roundabout. That was supposed to happen early in the year. We knew we were going to replace that entire area 100% ADA accessible, but because we were told the roundabout was going to take out that area, completely do away with it, we didn't want to spend that money, and our landlord, John Price, said, probably not best to spend that money. That's going to cost thousands of dollars. Wait till that roundabout construction is done because they're going to tear that whole area out. So we did that. I talked to Megan Salas many times, who's been wonderful and trying to figure out this whole situation. We tried to do everything that we could do within means of not spending thousands of dollars until the roundabout construction is completed. They took out the place the other day. That was supposed to be done back in January, I think, at the beginning. They actually took it out on May 8th due to weather conditions. So it is our intent 100% to be 100% ADA compliant. That is very important to us in anything that we do, and we really believe in that, and we want to be that. We do believe In this case, we had some unique circumstances because of the roundabout and that construction going in. There's no doubt we did screw up, and it should have been, we should have had an ADA compliant ramp. We thought it was. We could not find that 40-inch wide one. I was going to have it built, but by then we knew construction was a week later, so we were suggested not to do it at that point. I know we had some mistakes, but I will guarantee you, if we are allowed to have that space again, it will be done day one, 100% ADA compliant, and I hope you guys will listen to our unique circumstances. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Sneddon, you have a question for Mr. Bush?
No, I have a comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I make my
Yes,
comment now?
please do.
I wouldn't have referenced this except for that you, Mr. Bush, are referencing a conversation that we had in which I referenced Mr. Kuntz, and I said that even if you were open for one day, for 1 hour, for any moment of time, you would need to be compliant, in which that conversation that you indicated you refused. So I apologize that other people may have told you you did not need to be compliant. I was very clear that you need to be compliant, even if open for 1 day, regardless of if construction was happening, regardless of any other messages that you may have received from others. And I just want to make that clear today. And also to Mr. Kuntz to indicate that the conversation that you had with me when you really let me know that if even for an event for 1 day would need to be compliant. And I feel, I'll make this as a general comment, that it's been painful to see how many opportunities there have been to do the right and legal thing. Staff, thank you for the time you have spent really trying in good faith to bring businesses into compliance, to offer information, to go and do repeat inspections. I know in this case in particular, the indication was that it was maybe closed during business hours, and you went back and did a repeat inspection. Really above and beyond, actually, and the 3 to 6 months in leniency. I'm going to make the motion to deny the appeal.
Okay, motion. No, we're not doing a back and forth, Mr. Bush, I'm sorry. We have a motion on the floor by Sneddon.
I second.
Okay, second. Mr. Friedman, you have a comment.
I just have a question. There's no parklet there now, but for it to come back in, does that have to, is that correct? There's no parklet there now?
Mayor Ross, Councilmember Friedman, that's correct.
And then to get the parklet, would they have to come in through the new process because it's not continuous in time, or could they even put in the old parklet?
So Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Friedman, and I hope that Ms. Knecht will correct me if I'm wrong, the action that was taken was to suspend the authorization to operate in the right-of-way. So that comes with a removal notice. That's sort of the physical action, but what you're doing if you deny the appeal is you're suspending their authorization to operate in the public right-of-way. So at this time, we do not have a formal permitting or application process for parklets outside of State Street. We've got the licensing process on State Street, but parklets outside of State Street, at this point, they expire when the ERETO expires at the end of this year. So, and again, Ms. Knecht can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that that suspension of authorization would be indefinite.
Thank you.
Can I get a clarification on that? Because Ms. Knecht, you talked about earlier before, because the ERETO allowed for a parklet to be removed and then replaced, but was that State Street only?
Mr. Mayor, I would need to double check that. I think Ms. Clark is probably more familiar with the current state of the outdoor business, the parklets off of State Street than I am, so I'm going to need to go back and double check
Yeah,
that.
that would be something I'm sure Mr. Bush would be interested in, but also
Right.
On Coast Village Road, because we are taking a parking into the coastal zone, I'm not really sure how, we have some other existing parklets there now, but that is questionable in any case, but it would also, everything's going to expire in December when the RTO expires, so that correct, Ms. Clark?
Mayor Rouse, that's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Jordan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, I'll support this denial. You know, what I heard as an explanation there was similar to, I think, what Ms. Sneddon heard, and that's that due to the uncertainty of the roundabout construction, you elected to go put out a non-compliant parklet and wait that out in a non-compliant status until the construction was underway and you could exactly tell how to then go spend your money. And again, I would probably not say it the way as forcefully as Ms. Sneddon said it, but I believe that you can't go out there for one day. It doesn't matter. You can't make a business decision to go out there for one day because it'll cost you some money and then you'll have to tear it down and come back a month later when the construction's underway. It's clearly just not legal, and I think we're clearly sending the message that the benefit you're getting on operating on city property runs in tandem with your responsibility to do it in a legal manner. So again, I haven't heard anything here that I can support.
Ms. Harmon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I will be agreeing with my colleagues on this one, and I, for all the reasons that they have stated. And I would just also add, you know, I heard in the comments that you were receiving advice from your landlord, other folks, to wait, while you're simultaneously receiving these notices from the city, and I find it a little bit difficult to square that circle. Unless you hear from the authority that waiting is acceptable, it doesn't stand to reason to me that that it would be a wise business decision to ignore the notices that were sent. So I really do understand how challenging the last couple of years have been, how challenging it is to work within a system that is obviously in flux, and I have a lot of sympathy for that. But again, we are just in a position where the law is the law, and we really do have a responsibility to uphold it. Thank you.
All right, very good. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion?
Okay, this is for item 19. We have a motion by Councilmember Sneddon, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Alejandro Gutierrez. We'll take a vote. Oh, and I'm sorry, the motion is to deny the appeal.
Right. Motion passes 7-0.
Very good.
Item 20, please.
Item 20, appeal of the suspension of authorization to operate and maintain a parklet at Courthouse Tavern at 129 East Anapamoo Street.
Courthouse Tavern was first inspected on November 9th, 2022, and was found to not provide an accessible table. Again, with the pedestal tables provided, they don't allow for the required clearance under the table. At the follow-up inspection on January 19th, a table had still not been provided. The first administrative citation was issued on January 27th with a deadline of February 14th. At the follow-up inspection on February 23rd, a new table was provided, but it was not compliant in regards to the height, and then it also had brackets on the edges that did not give the required 30 inches width. The second administrative citation was issued on March 13th with a correction deadline of March 29th, with a follow-up inspection on April 7th, where there was no change, and the removal notice was issued April 17th. A new table has been provided since. Staff has inspected that table and found that it actually is a little bit taller than the maximum height of 34 inches, so it is still not in compliance.
All right, very good. Questions for staff? Do we have any public speakers on this item?
No online public speakers, Mr. Mayor.
All right, very good. I will entertain a motion.
I'll move denial.
Moved by Friedman, Ms. Sneddon, second by Sneddon. Any discussion to the motion? Oh, Gutierrez. Guys, quit trying to beat each other. All right, then did you have a comment, Ms. Sneddon? Okay. Okay, very good. So with no discussion, we'll go ahead and go to the vote, please.
Very good. This is for item 20, and this is a motion by Councilmember Friedman, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Alejandro Gutierrez to deny the appeal. We'll start the vote.
Motion denied passes 7-0.
Very good.
All right, let us go to item 21, please.
Item 21, appeal of the suspension of authorization to operate and maintain a parklet at Trattoria Vittoria at 30 East Victoria Street.
Trattoria Vittoria was initially inspected on November 9th, 2022. The ramp was found to be non-compliant. It did not have the required handrails. There was no edge protection. The vertical edge at the lip at the edge end exceeded ½ inch. There was also no accessible table provided. The follow-up inspection on January 19th, there were no changes. The first administrative citation was issued on January 31st with a correction deadline of February 14th. The follow-up inspection on February 23rd, there were again no changes. The second administrative citation was issued on March 13th with a correction deadline of March 29th. At the follow-up inspection on April 7th, there were again no changes, and the removal notice was issued on April 17th. They have since corrected the violations on their ramp and provided an accessible table, but that came after the removal deadline.
All right, very good. Any questions for staff? Mr. Gutierrez.
So they have become compliant, but it was after the deadline?
Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Gutierrez, yes, that is correct.
Okay,
It was after the removal notice had been posted.
okay.
All right, very good. Do you have a question, Ms. Gutierrez?
How long after the notice did they come into compliance?
We went out and inspected, Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Gutierrez, I apologize. We went out and inspected the first week of May, and then, and it was in compliance at that point. So I don't know how soon after, but by May 5th, it was in compliance. So within a few weeks.
So they got the notice, and the next time the city came around, they were in compliance with everything?
Correct, yes. After they received the removal notice, they rebuilt the ramp and put in the table.
So compared to the ones that we just reviewed, this one was in full compliance in the last time the city went to do a review?
Yes, 3 of them that we are looking at today did come into compliance after the removal notices were posted.
Okay.
Ms. Connect.
Just to be clear, in this particular case, like a couple of the other ones, didn't come into compliance until after the removal notice.
All right, very good. If there are no questions, I do have a speaker on this, Victoria Coleman.
Not quite that tall. Okay, Mayor, City Council members, it's an honor to stutter through a public speech with you again. I am sad to be doing this on behalf of our restaurant. It's obviously a failing on our part that we are here at all, and not something that I would like us to represent for our legacy and my grandparents' legacy at that place. I spoke a little bit about this to you guys in the past. It was really unfortunate timing for us. We were going through an ownership dispute. I actually was reprimanded by my attorney, and I can only say so much about the ownership dispute without risking reopening a can of worms that we just finally got settled. And I really want nothing more than for my grandparents to be able to have some peace and quiet and retire with at least a little bit of the joy that they are entitled to and have worked so hard for. So I'm going to try not to say too much about it. Suffice to say, we're a family business. When that family splits, it has huge ripple effects for the business. We did change our service of process address in January, and I believe the following notices were all sent to the restaurant directly. The restaurant was in a huge state of disarray. I received the March citation mailing, and that was the first I became aware of the parklet issue. And I believe I looked at it late due to the state of disorganization of our mail system and everything else. But I did do my best to get immediately onto that, not looking to make excuses. I do want to say, just as a general consideration for you guys for the future, that maybe don't do hand deliveries. I feel it's a little bit unfair to employees to get caught in the middle of that situation where their name might be on a legal notice that the owner didn't receive. That I just noticed only because our very first notice had my bartender's name on it. We didn't have issues like that where an employee said they received something that they didn't hand to me. But I didn't receive a hand-delivered notice. I only got the March citation, and I do think it's unfair to my employees to have their name on that sort of legal notice and risk some sort of liability. That's all I really wanted to say about that. I did want to note it was also really difficult to schedule the repairs themselves because everyone was on the same enforcement timeline. It seemed like the carpenters were complaining to me that they were fixing every other parklet on State Street at the same time that we were trying to schedule them to come out to work on our parklet, and that was just on top of general damage from all the storms that we had right around that time. I'm sure you guys experienced your own plumbing and other structural issues yourselves. But we did have a little bit of difficulty scheduling the repairs, just so you know they were done by the 24th, the date that we were supposed to remove them. We got the notice on the 17th. Monday, the 24th, everything was compliant and back to normal. I was able to actually borrow a table from another local restaurant owner until we could get our own delivered, which was really lovely. And then the most important thing I really want to touch on is that I do think that there is huge public benefit to allowing some leniencies for us and some of the other parklets that we've gone through them already, just because outdoor dining itself is an accommodation for people who are immunocompromised, and taking that away when we have worked our hardest to get into compliance as soon as I got aware of it means that I can't provide that accommodation to my disabled and immunocompromised patrons anymore. And I really think that that's a loss that we don't have to have, as well as just the tax revenue from those extra tables. Anyways, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for even allowing us to appeal and do this part of the process. I'm very sorry to be doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gutierrez.
I'll make a motion to appeal the appeal.
Motion by Gutierrez. Oscar?
To
Uphold?
uphold, sorry, appeal.
Okay. Ms. Snedden?
I do have a question about if anything in the change of ownership or dispute or anything in there is makes this one different or not legally.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Snedden, not legally, no.
All right, there was a motion on the floor to uphold the appeal. I have not heard a second. All right. Another motion, that motion dies for lack of a second?
I'll make a motion to deny the appeal, but on this, I appreciate you coming forward, and this one in particular is the one I struggled with, especially with the change in ownership, but based on the answer that we just got, we're limited in what we can review and what we can't, but I definitely appreciate the feedback that you gave us too, for how we might be able to change how we address these or go forward. So with that, I'll make the motion to deny the appeal.
I'm sorry, we've got this format going on. So the motion by Friedman. I'll second. All right, and I will say, yes, it was obviously a dramatic thing. I know your grandparents have known from, forever, but this is something the staff's been doing since November. This is a process, it's a law, it's not squishable, it's not changeable. It is what we are sworn to uphold. And so circumstances can be circumstances, and ADA can be very technical and very hard sometimes to understand, but it is the law. And we would be irresponsible to do otherwise when we have something very clearly in front of us and something very clearly that everybody else in town has to comply with. So, Mr. Jordan.
Well, I love being called irresponsible, so I'll say that. But this is a situation for me, too, that was the hardest out of the six. And I look back on my process years as a planning commissioner, and some of the best decisions I ever made, I thought, that the Planning Commission ever made, were not legal decisions necessarily. They were legal, but they weren't based entirely on legality. They were frequently based on just the humanity of what takes place in everybody's lives and what those consequences are. So while I recognize that looking at these in a black and white status is preferable. This one has been corrected. I'm concerned that we were involved in a process where we weren't even noticing the right person because of the ownership squabble, and that if they're in compliance now, I would tend to look to taking a chance on this one and saying they will continue to be in compliance. So I will not vote to uphold the appeal.
All right. Ms. Connect, could you remind us, in terms of the noticing, what our responsibilities are as an agency to notice these kinds of actions? What process needs to take place? Because we can't obviously be responsible for the circumstances at the address itself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, right, we would not know if there was a change of ownership or what we are only provided with the information that we're given in terms of who's on the application or who's the operator. So the obligation is to personal service to the operator or service by mail, certified mail. And it goes into, the municipal code goes into, this is what the regulations provide, and the municipal code says that enforcement under 1.25, as further described in the regulations. So the regulations provide personal service or certified mail addressed to the owner shown on the assessment roll shall be conclusively deemed to be the proper address for the purpose of mailing such notice. So I don't know who is listed on the assessment roll in this case, but that's conclusively determined to be the appropriate addressee. So certified mail returned due to inaccurate addressing shall also be mailed to you, also be mailed through the U.S. mail or service by posting. So, and then it also goes on that failure to receive notice shall not affect the validity of the proceedings taken under the code.
So in short, staff fulfilled all the requirements for noticing.
Correct.
All right, very good. Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
The alternative, but equally credible world we live in is when we are given information that allows additional consideration, is that we take the opportunity to consider that information rather than fall back on the easy talking point of we have no responsibility to what happens in the world. As some of you know, city attorney has tied our hands with an opinion that it's just an up or down vote, that we couldn't put conditions on somebody who has complied and deserves additional consideration. They couldn't put down on a big cash deposit. They couldn't be subject to signing an agreement that allows us to take their parklet out and for them to pay for it under any circumstances we deem fit. It's just an up or down quote. So given those choices that are put on me, I still say there is a opportunity to recognize the situation here and move forward.
Okay, further comments to the motion? All right, let's have a vote.
I have
No,
a
Ms.
comment.
Gutierrez.
I don't know if this question might be legal, but can I ask city staff, this case particularly, since they were in compliance after, would you say that this case in particular, they were more, they would follow up in compared to the other cases where they, you were able to see that they, after the proper owner was notified, did try to intend to really make those changes. And the reason I'm asking is because I do agree with how notices are taken out, and that's also, we're learning in the process, and I appreciate everything that city staff has done, especially it's a no-brainer, right? You've gotten so many chances. It's the law. It's black or white. But this one in particular stands out because of the information given. So I'm just wondering if you saw anything different from the ones that did
Before staff responds, I'd just like to say that staff was carrying out the directions from this council. After you would come back to us and say, we say, how many people are in compliance, how many are out? We say, why are there still people out of compliance? So the noticing went out, the instructions went out. So I don't think it's fair to ask staff to make a judgment along those lines at this point of the game when they're simply doing what we've told them to do from the dais. I mean, I'm not trying to affect the vote either way here, but I do want to stick up for staff's position and not put you in a position to have to make a judgment, because I really don't think that's fair.
Sure. So Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Alejandro Gutierrez, as Ms. Salas noted in her presentation, 3 of the facilities did come into compliance after we issued the removal notice. However, we're still here today and we're seeing that process through because that removal notice was not another correction notice. So they had gotten 3 correction notices, which is an opportunity to fix the violation. And then because of failure to do so, the final notice is the suspension of their authorization and the removal of the facility. And so from our standpoint, from our point of view and the way that we are administering this ordinance, that removal notice was not another subsequent notice to correct. So, we did go back and we re-inspected just to have that information to bring it forward to you today because we knew that that would be a point of discussion. However, we were not persisting with the sort of iterative enforcement process beyond that removal notice. And so while we appreciate certainly that the facilities did make ultimately an effort to comply, at that point, we are beyond our authorization as staff to give another opportunity to correct. So we're now into this appeals process, and that was up to this body to decide.
Thank you for that clarification. I wasn't asking staff for a judgment. I was just based on your experience and through this whole process. So thank you for that.
Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. I agree with our colleagues that this is certainly the most difficult of any of the hearings that we have to decide on today. But truthfully, the process was followed, and I really do feel for you that there was a lot going on, that it didn't necessarily reach you in the way that you would have hoped. But to me, ADA law and accessibility is not something for us to be flexible on. It is the civil rights of community members, and I don't see a way around that. Much as I so appreciate your testimony and your engagement, and I wish that I could, but it's just, this is too important, and I think our flexibility on this issue has in part led us to this moment today. Too many times we have said, okay, next time, or, and it just, it's not something that I personally can let go. That said, I do really hope that as we move forward in this process, thinking about what our city will look like and how this will evolve, that we can find a path forward, because that seems like it would be best for all of us. So I will be voting, I don't remember what the motion is, but to deny the appeal. Thank you.
Well, and just a final comment. I mean, Mr. Jordan brought up about the one on Coast Village Road. A minute out of compliance is out of compliance, and that these are very fair, very open notices, and the process is, and there, like I said, might be confusing. There may be a personal situation, as was happening with Ms. Coleman's situation. We can't control that, and if we step aside on it, I really think that we're not doing what we're up here to do. So that's my opinion. And with that, Madam Clerk, we'll go to a vote.
This is for item 21, motion by Councilmember Friedman, seconded by Mayor Rouse to deny the appeal. We'll go ahead and vote.
Motion carries 5-2 with Oscar Gutierrez and Michael Jordan dissenting. All right, and for item 22.
Item 22, appeal of the suspension of authorization to operate and maintain a parklet at Foxtail Kitchen and Bar at 14 East Coda Street.
Salas.
So Foxtail, their initial inspection was December 8th, 2022, and at that time, we found there was a gap at the transition greater than a ½ inch. As you can see in that photo, it's closer to about an inch, and no accessible table was provided. At the follow-up inspection on January 25th, 2023, there was no change observed, so a first administrative citation was issued on January 31st with a correction deadline of February 14th. At the follow-up inspection on March 8th, we did find that an accessible table had been provided, but the gap remained at the transition. So a second administrative citation was issued on March 13th with a correction deadline of March 29th. The follow-up inspection on April 7th, no change was seen. The gap at the transition remained, so the removal notice was issued on April 17th. Since the removal notice was issued, that gap has been corrected, and they are now compliant.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for staff? Mr. Gutierrez.
So how long after do you know that when they became compliant?
So Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Gutierrez, again, we inspected the first week of May, and at that time they were compliant, so I'm not sure how soon after they became compliant, but it was after the removal notice.
Gotcha.
All right, very good. I don't have any speaker slips here. Are there any speakers online, Madam Clerk, for this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, very good. I will then entertain
I'll move to deny.
Move to deny by Friedman. Second by Snedden. Did I get it right this time? All right, very good. Any further discussion on the item? May we have the vote, please, Madam Clerk?
This is for item 22, motion by Councilmember Friedman, seconded by Councilmember Snedden to deny the appeal. Go ahead and vote, please.
Motion carries 6-1. Dissenting is Oscar Gutierrez. All right, very good. Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to item 23.
Mayor Rouse, do you want to take a very quick break for?
You got translator break?
It's a good time. Item 23 is 4 o'clock. We're almost 4 o'clock, so it would be a good time to take a very
That
quick break.
sounds great. We will meet at about 5 after. Go ahead and reconvene. Madam Clerk, you have an item to read, please.
Yes, item 23, interviews for city advisory groups.
All right, very good. We're going to interview all of you. We really appreciate you putting in the time and the interest to be part of our group. In the interest of getting to hear from all of you, we'll like to limit you to 3 minutes each in your little introduction, but each of us may have questions for you once you're up on the dais. And I'm going to call the different committees in order, so when you hear your committee, please come forward. If you're applying for more than one committee, let us know when you're up here. You can just interview the one time and let us know you're applying for both of them. All right, and with that, we'll start out with the Architectural Board of Review. So who's ever here for that, please come up and identify yourself. Don't be shy. Okay. We'll move on to the Arts Advisory Committee. I'm 0 for 2 so far. Okay. Building and Fire Code Board of Appeals. I don't have anybody for that one. It's going by pretty fast, don't you think? Citizens Oversight Committee. Civil Service Commission. Community Development and Human Services Committee. There we go. Mr. Buxton.
May I begin? Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Jacob. Yes, I'm applying for the Community Development Commission as a member with a disability for the last 9.5 years. I have been working at the Independent Living Resource Center doing disability advocacy in the Tri-County. I am deeply familiar with the community development block grant process. My agency had often received community development block grants from this city and other cities that we serve. I have also been privy to the city's discussion of CBDG fund from my work on the Parks and Rec Commission. Well, I get to hear about truly amazing CBDG funded projects. I would like to use my expertise in grant writing, my knowledge of community resources, and my familiarity with the CBDG process to help the city on this Commission, and I would be honored if you would select me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Lesnar Buxton? Thank you very much. Anyone else for the Community Development and Human Services Committee?
Excuse me.
Please introduce yourself and let us know what you'd like to do.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Rouse and City Council members. My name is Angelica Diaz. My childhood was spent in a small agricultural town in the Salinas Valley, but I have been a member of our community now for over 20 years and an Oak Park resident for almost 4.5 years. I have worked at UC Santa Barbara since receiving my bachelor's degree and have also worked on various theater productions. Some of my most memorable experiences were the productions I volunteered with youth from City at Peace and the kids from local schools participating with Santa Barbara Dance Institute for their end-of-year performance. During my time serving on the board with Santa Barbara Dance Institute, I learned how critical receiving a grant may be for work an organization is doing in the service they provide to members of the community. Both as a conference manager and a stage manager, I have the ability to manage multiple things, a required attention to detail, interpersonal, and collaboration skills. I have the time and dedication to serve, have access to a computer at home, the ability to join in-person meetings, conduct site visits October through January, and the extended hours required in February. I even checked in with work should site visits be during business hours and have my supervisor's full support, including our director, who is also an Oak Park resident. The work the Community Development and Human Resources Committee is focused on is integral to the Santa Barbara community. As a renter, Latina, and a woman with a lived experience like many of my neighbors in Oak Park, I hope to be able to represent my neighborhood by serving on this committee and ensuring that Oak Park and all Santa Barbarans are receiving attention, services, and the care that they need. It would be a privilege to participate and be able to give back to the community and the neighborhood that I love. As the daughter of immigrants and a kid to a single mom when I was 14, I understand firsthand how important it is to have access to resources and what this can mean to community, families, and an individual. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there questions for this candidate? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Community Development and Human Services Committee? Oh, Mr. Jordan, do you have a question for the last candidate? Oh, not yet. On the okay, that might be a question for Mr. Lopez. Please come forward.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Liam Gallo. I am a nonprofit program director at the Northern Santa Barbara County United Way. I'm also a volunteer with the Fund for Santa Barbara. I am trying to get on your Community Development and Human Services Committee because I feel like I can be effective. I've been part of a grant-making process for a year now. That's 3 cycles for the general cycle for the Fund for Santa Barbara and 2 race equity fund cycles for the county. So that's smaller $10,000 grants, about 10 each cycle, and then bigger $100,000 grants with the Race Equity Fund. So I'm familiar with the process of collaborating to release funds to the community and adhering to a set of funding priorities. That's actually part of the reason why I want to join your committee. It's so that I could diversify my experience with funding priorities. Right now I'm kind of in the same area with regard to the kind of priorities I adhere to, and I'd like to try to break that up a little bit. I'm also interested in collaborating with different people. I kind of have been with the same set of amazing people, and I'd like to add my number of amazing people. So I figure that this kind of public service arena would be a great place to find like-minded folks. I have the time, so I'm willing to devote the time necessary to serve if appointed. I understand the ebb and flow of site visits and in-person meetings to deliberate, and I'm also familiar with Submittable, at least, for doing grant applications, and if I can pick up that one, I can pick up any of them. So good on that front. I'm specifically looking to do the the homeless-related services organization spot, since my AmeriCorps program that I run is a partnership that addresses homelessness and veteran services. I support a partnership of 10 homeless services providers, 5 of them county agencies, and so I'm hoping to represent in that fashion. Yeah. The other thing I want to gain, I want to support organizations that address the nearly 1,900 homeless people in the county, 787 of which live in the city of Santa Barbara, as stated in the most recent point-in-time count results for 2023. I'm also interested in supporting organizations that want to add value to State Street specifically, since it's become sort of a promenade. As a citizen of Santa Barbara, I live in Oak Park also. That has been a beautiful way to connect with my community here. And so if I can at all advise in the direction of keeping alive the parts of it that I find so beautiful, I want to do that. I want to devote time to that. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this candidate? Thank you very much. Any other candidates for the Community Development and Human Services Committee? Mr. Jordan, you had a question for Mr. Lopez.
Yeah, it's actually for Ms. Gorman. So you listed 2 in the Oak Park neighborhood, and I don't know if Mr. Kramer will show up, but clearly both of those have clearly to me, have a business community aspect to them. And I'm just wondering, before we get to the end of this, if you could just slide one of those down to the vacant business community category.
Mr. Lopez.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Jordan, I put candidates in the category with which they indicated on the application, so they were able to choose the category they wish to be applied. If Zachary Kramer does interview, it is at your discretion to put him into the business community slot.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to Community Events and Festivals Committee.
I'm going to try not to breathe into the microphone. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. It is with great enthusiasm and honor that I stand before you today to apply for the Events and Festivals Committee. As a dedicated and passionate individual, I am eager to contribute my skills and ideas to enhance the vibrant cultural fabric of our beloved city. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Wilder, and I've been a resident of Santa Barbara for 3.5 years. Throughout my time here, I have witnessed the powerful transformation of community engagement and the effects of well-organized events. I firmly believe that events play a crucial role in bringing people together, fostering unity, and creating impactful experiences. As a member of the Events Committee, I will bring a unique blend of creativity, organizational skills, and a keen eye for detail. I understand firsthand the complexities involved in event planning and have experience coordinating diverse teams, managing budgets, and ensuring that every aspect of an event is executed. Moreover, I believe that there is still untapped potential within our community, waiting to be realized through well-planned and tastefully curated events. The Event Committee's mission is to curate diverse spaces that will serve as catalysts for community engagement, foster a sense of pride and unity, and showcase the best of what Santa Barbara has to offer. I believe that events have the power to strengthen social bonds, ignite creativity, and stimulate economic growth. Together, we can create opportunities for residents of all ages, backgrounds, and walks of life to come together, celebrate, and connect.
Thank you. Are there questions for this applicant? Very good. Thank you very much. Oops, Mr. Gutierrez has a question.
Thank you for applying. What experience do you have in organizing
I am the
events?
CEO of an events business that operates in Santa Barbara and Los Angeles.
And what is that?
We do silent disco events at various venues, and I've been doing that for 1.5 years almost to date.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for community events and festivals? Okay, County of Santa Barbara Library Advisory Committee. Creeks Advisory Committee. There is one.
Good evening, Mayor Rouse and council members. My name is Ann Burdette, and I am seeking appointment to the Creeks Advisory Committee. I'm a Santa Barbara local, a soon-to-be graduate of the UCSB Environmental Studies program, and the board secretary of the Urban Creeks Council, which protects and restores the local creeks and engages community members in doing the same. Growing up here, I was lucky to spend a lot of time exploring nature. My parents would take me to the creeks and the parks to check things out and explore, and I want to bring those kind of experiences to the rest of the community, including the next generation, and that's why I want to join the Creeks Advisory Committee. We all live in a watershed, and we're connected to what's going on up and downstream, so protecting the creeks is a good way to engage the community in nature and connect the community together at the same time. Engaging the public has been central to my work with Urban Creeks Council. I'm the co-chair of our Outreach and Stewardship Committee, and as part of that, we've put on public forums, creek tours and cleanups, and our Neighborhood Creek Stewardship Program. I think that the Creeks Advisory Committee should prioritize cultivating a better relationship between people and their watersheds by involving the whole community in the planning, implementation, and monitoring phases of restoration projects. Palermo Open Space presents a great current opportunity for that because the neighbors are already engaged with that space, and because a restoration there will add continuity to an already established corridor of restored sites along Arroyo Creek. In the longer term, I think Mission and Sycamore Creeks would also be good places for those kind of projects because their urban locations would make them very suitable for engaging the community. In addition to bringing my passion for protecting creeks and my generation's perspective on environmental issues, I'll also bring to the committee 6 years of experience as an Urban Creeks Council board member, as well as a holistic and timely understanding of both the ecological and policy side of environmental issues from my UCSB education. As a student and board member, I've learned to carefully consider all sides of an environmental issue with attention to detail and look for balanced and equitable solutions. I'm ready and excited to devote the time and focus necessary to serve this committee. I will disclose that I won't be in town for the August meeting of this year, although I could participate remotely if that's an option. And then beyond that, I will prioritize this committee in my schedule and contribute fully for the whole term. Thank you for considering me, and I look forward to working with the city to get towards a future where everyone in this city can walk from their home to a healthy creek that they can interact with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Burdette? All right, very good. Anyone else for the Creeks Advisory Committee?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Murray, and first of all, I want to say that Anne, who is one of my best students I've ever had, who's also taken rivers and conservation planning from me, Anne is the person who recruited me to join the Santa Barbara Urban Creeks Council and get on the board, which she has been active in this since she was 16, and she's the most passionate person I've ever met about Santa Barbara creeks. Okay, with that, like Anne, I'm also a local, only I graduated high school in the 70s and lived on San Marcos Pass, and I returned about 17 years ago for parent care, as I'm sure other people have experienced. And I've been teaching at UCSB as a lecturer. I'm like Kristen Sneddon, I'm a fluvial geomorphologist, and I'm kind of winding down. I'm just going to teach one class next spring, and then I fully retire, so I'm partially retiring. So I'm ready to be of more service to my community. Local service, as I said, Anne has engaged me in the Santa Barbara Urban Creeks Council, so we're engaged in a lot of policy work. We're familiar with most of our local creeks, and we do a lot of creek cleanups and work with communities. Like Anne, we've had a lot of discussions about moving into Sycamore Creek area and serving that area. We've also been engaging in the Palermo Open Space for a while now, and wrote a wonderful conservation plan on that. Let's see, I guess what I offer mostly is my technical background. I'm a licensed engineering hydrologist, and I have a PhD in this field. I teach in this area. Other positions I've had are, I've had a position very similar to Cameron Benson, so I feel like I understand some of the issues related to bringing in money and managing such projects. I also facilitated for the Southern California Wetlands Recovery Project, so I understand how funding comes to be to fund these projects. Let's see, what else do I have? Yeah, just, I just am ready to engage a little more fully locally in doing what I already love. And as I told Cameron, if you have the choice between Anne or me, choose Anne. She's amazing. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for this applicant? All right, very good. Anybody else for the Creeks Advisory Committee? Okay. Move on to the Harbor Commission. All righty, nobody for the Harbor Commission? The Library Board. That's usually a hot one. And speaking of hot ones, here's Mr. Barnwell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Brian Barnwell. I have a long history with libraries. I worked in the library at UCSB when I was a student there. I worked at the library in Nashville, Tennessee when I lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 4 years. Of course, I'm a member of the library. When I was in the Army in the late 60s, I took a tour of the Midwest libraries that had been built by Andrew Carnegie to see how Andrew Carnegie's libraries were built and how they functioned. When I was on the city council, I was on the library committee, and I believe, Councilman Friedman, weren't you on the library committee at one point? I think when I was in the council, he was on the library committee. The library has a very exciting future, as we all see when we walk by the building. I would like to be a part of that exciting future. I believe that I can bring some expertise, both in my experience in libraries and my experience in government. So I'd like you to consider my application.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Mr. Barnwell?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for the Library Board? All righty. Living Wage Advisory Committee.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lynn Goebel. I'm applying to be on the Living Wage Advisory Committee. I am applying under the employed by a nonprofit entity. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Santa Barbara County. My position is as the managing attorney at the Legal Resource Center, one half of the Civil Self-Help Center in the Superior Court. I'll send you some info if you want to send some folks our way. I previously served on the Rental Housing Mediation Board, so it's a delight to see Andrea in the crowd. And I just love being a part of this community. I came here by way of UCSB in 1990 and never left. I am passionate about people's ability to live and work in this community. I know it's challenging. People laugh when I tell them I'm an attorney, but I live with 3 other unrelated adults because that's how you can afford to live in this city. I bring some critical thinking skills, a passion for helping others, and I would like to be considered for this committee.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions, Ms. Goebel?
Thanks.
All right, thank you. And yes, sir.
Same.
Living wage?
Housing. Bruce Wallenberg. I've been a mediator since 1977. Okay.
But for the Living Wage Advisory Committee, is that?
Yeah. Rental
Okay.
housing.
Yeah, we don't have an application, Ms. Okay, so you're applying for both then, or either one? For rental housing meet? Oh, okay, then we're on the wrong one then. That's quite all right.
Okay.
So I'll call you back up in a sec here.
Well, I'm Bruce Wallenberg, and
Yeah.
I'm a mediator.
Yeah, but we'll get you when we come to the rental housing one. We're not there yet. We're almost there. Just-
My hearing aid is making.
That's okay, you
everybody
belong up here then, that'd be
louder
great.
than they should be.
I'll give you a shout out just a sec here. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's see, Mosquito and Vector Management District Board. It's always an exciting one to be on. Neighborhood Advisory Committee. All right. Mr. Wallenberg, I guess I just shaded you away too soon. Now we're back. Come on down. Don't say I didn't give you a workout tonight. Let's try this again.
My next try.
Well, we know who you are now.
Okay. I started in 1977 learning to be a mediator, and I've enjoyed it all these years, and I'd like to continue with my expertise. And I want to use a couple seconds to say thank you for supporting the rental housing program. I mean, Andrea is fantastic. We're able to bring people together, people who might be at each other's throats, but when they come together, they say to one another, okay, we may not agree on everything like you do on the council, but we can find a way forward into the future that's not so contentious. And it allows people to express themselves in a controlled environment in which they can make progress instead of being stuck. So thank you for supporting the rental housing mediation program.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wallenberg? All right. Anybody else for the Rental Housing Mediation Board?
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Smith. I'm currently a lawyer as a deputy county counsel working for the county in their litigation department. Also have several assignments with the sheriff's department. I've worked in both private practice in Santa Barbara and have served as a mediator and been trained as a mediator for several years before returning to, or starting my government service with the county council several years ago. I read about the this board. I read about this opportunity that people have, because as a litigator, you know, I love to get in there and just fight. But I also love to resolve cases. And the beauty about a mediation, it gives people the chance to participate in the resolution. People who participate in the resolution and get educated in the process not only help others, but also are comfortable with the result. And any way we can keep people out of the courts, which are already inundated with cases, and resolve such a basic function, which is housing, is a good thing. I'm neither pro-landlord or pro-tenant. I've been both. I don't come here with an agenda. I come here with an agenda to help resolve people's issues, to get back, to be fair to both parties, and have them just agree to disagree or agree to come up with a resolution and move forward with their life. So.
All right, very good. Any questions for Ms. Smith? Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
well, thank you. Good luck.
All right. Move on to the Santa Barbara Youth Council.
Good afternoon. My name is Amelia Vandermeer. I am currently the chair of the Santa Barbara Youth Council, and I am reapplying to serve another term. I am passionate about making productive change in my community, and the Youth Council has given me the platform to do so. Over my time on the Youth Council, I've worked on a lot of projects, including the Youth Speak Out for Mental Health and the Youth Speak Out Coffee with a Council Member, all of which have helped me become a better leader and a more productive member of my community. Being a part of these projects have shown me how important it is to uplift the youth voice. I think it's incredibly important for young people to be involved in leadership in order to serve as representatives for our peers and make sure our community representatives are accessible to youth. I think one of the biggest issues affecting youth is that we are not involved enough in decisions in our community, such as voting in elections and making our voices heard on issues that affect us. I want to continue to use Youth Council as a platform to bring youth together to voice their concerns and see how change is made in Santa Barbara. I am fully willing and able to devote the time necessary to Youth Council, and I look forward to being able to continue to make a difference in my community as a member of the Youth Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about Mr. Gutierrez?
Thank you for reapplying. So I've been the liaison for the Youth Council for a few years now, and I always kind of want to see you all do more, and I know you're already doing a lot. I know it's hard to be a student nowadays, but I just want to ask you, now that you've been on it for a few years, what do you think you on the Youth Council can do to make it more, I don't know, well-known among the community? or how can you relate to us more on this council here?
So this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, especially because it was really difficult to get our footing out of the pandemic, but now that we are back in person, we have a full team of people who knows how it works. I am hoping that next year we can kind of divide up our time so that we can spend more time hosting and planning events, as well as actually writing memos to you all, writing ordinances, and kind of choosing an issue that we really want to focus on for the whole year and really make a change in the city.
That's great. So when it comes to some of the issues that we're facing and that I would appreciate your input on, State Street's one of them. I'm not trying to pick on you all, but we hear a lot of response from the community about the youth on their bikes, in particular on State Street. How would you on the Youth Council address that?
So one of the things that we have been talking a lot about is how we can improve kind of our surroundings and the architecture of State Street to better support bikes. We don't want to take them away because bikes and other modes of transportation are really important for youth, especially those who can't drive or can't afford a car or other modes of transportation. So looking at other cities, like San Luis Obispo has done a really good job of this, that create safe bike lanes that are separated from the streets and from pedestrian crosswalks, but are still accessible for bikers. They could have like rails or plants between them. That way they're not crossing into pedestrian paths or in car paths where people could get injured. And really making State Street or other streets more accessible and safer for all kinds of transportation.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else for Santa Barbara Youth Council?
Hello, my name is Carlos Vasquez. Hope you all are doing well. I am a student at San Marcos High School.
No, on the second page.
Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
All good. As I said, I'm a freshman at San Marcos High School. Ever since I moved here from DC a few years ago, I've always been passionate about the city, and I've recognized how special it is and how different it is from other cities I've been to. I'm very passionate about, especially the youth committee in Santa Barbara. As a part of this committee, I would really like to get the youth engaged in our community, whether it's through volunteer opportunities or other opportunities like that. I also want them to feel like they have a voice, and as the representative, I can hopefully do that. I'm very willing to devote time to this committee, and I feel that it has a very important role in the youth, in our youth community of our Santa Barbara community. My qualifications for this committee are I play a lot of sports, and I've always been a leader in my sports. I've always been a captain and been able to lead my team into whether it was victory or loss and make sure that they learn something from the experience. I'm also at San Marcos a part of the Apple Academy. It is an academy based off of leadership and serving and giving back to your community. In Apple, I am the freshman cohort president. And I am also at my school. I'm also the vice president of the Mecha community, community program. It is a program based on empowering the Latino community and making sure that they have a voice in our school, San Marcos. That is mostly what I want to touch on. I'm really passionate about our community, and I hope you consider me for Santa Barbara Youth Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for that candidate? Very good. Thank you very much. And next for the Youth Council.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Jeremy Josué Solano Beltran. I'm actually from Mexico. I'm not from here. I am living here for almost 1 year. I am in a political asylum situation. I was forced to move from my old town because of criminal organization. So this is a kind of different opportunity for me, right? So when we're talking about Santa Barbara Youth Council, we remember some of the past events that I really like, I attend to. This is some sort of opportunity for everyone to engage more in the community, right? During those meetings that I attend to, I've seen a lot of youth that it's really claiming this position to actually engage, and this makes me really happy because back there I can't speak enough of how we are oppressed, right? So this is the opportunity I hope to get here, is to, I'm not seeking for leadership skills, or I am not a leader. I do believe in teamwork because that's what it's keeping my family and my community back there fighting against everything else, right? And I think the most pressing issues for youth here is that it's really stressful, the situation between the gap of people that have the power to make changes and the people that don't, right? We, as a youth, we can't really do anything. We can vote, we can say out loud everything we need to say, right? We have a lot of issues. We shouldn't be talking about gun violence and being killed in our schools. We shouldn't be talking about drug abuse. We shouldn't be talking about how our friends are being killed themselves because they feel so stressful and so alone. We shouldn't be talking about these things, and yet here we are speaking up, we are talking, we are engaging. So what I mean by believing in teamwork, I believe that everyone needs to finally have a part of this beautiful community, to keep this community for being a total disaster, and transforming all of this to make a better change for everyone, and no matter what race, what gender, everyone deserves being in a healthy environment. And it doesn't matter if it's natural, if it's social, if it's economic, we shouldn't be worried about those things. That's why we are here, talking. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this applicant? All right, very good. Thank you very much. Anybody else for Santa Barbara Youth Council?
Good afternoon, council members and Mayor Rouse. My name is Sagarika Manian, and I'm applying to renew my term at Santa Barbara Youth Council. Santa Barbara Youth Council is a platform within local government where youth are provided a voice in local government regarding issues not only affecting youth, but everyone else in the community. During my past 2 years at Youth Council, I've learned so much, including leadership skills, dedication, and really just learning about how local government works. I think that it's important for teens, including myself, to be involved in youth leadership because it provides a great opportunity for them to learn skills that they will need for the future and to help the community. In particular, I would like to address the issues regarding the environment because as Santa Barbara is a beautiful destination spot and a beautiful beach town, and if we continue to take care of our environment, future generations, including myself, will continue to have a beautiful space to enjoy and share. I've had a lot of experience and skills from serving on this youth council that I have gained not only from my first term in youth council, but from other nonprofits that I serve, including 2 that I help run. I am willing to devote the time and service to the youth council, and out of all the skills that I have learned, I hope to share my teamwork and devotion skills because youth council definitely requires these since they are a very active group. Thank you, and I hope you consider me for Santa Barbara Youth Council.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for this candidate? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Santa Barbara Youth Council?
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Lucia Camp, and I have lived in Santa Barbara my entire life. Because I've lived in Santa Barbara my entire life, what happens in this community means a lot to me. I'm constantly talking to my parents, to my friends and their parents about what changes they would like to see in this town, in this city. Some skills that I possess that will serve me well on Youth Council are leadership, cooperation, and networking. As I mentioned earlier, I'm constantly talking with my peers about what changes they would like to see, and I think this will serve to amplify voices on the Youth Council that aren't being heard. I demonstrate leadership in my peer-run journalism class, where we have to work together to make an issue in 3 months with what we have. We don't have a lot of time to argue about the specifics or make decisions. We just have to agree. I think this is what is most important for Youth Council. From what I have observed, a lot of us spend time arguing constantly without trying to reach a resolution. This is what I would like to implement in Youth Council, is teamwork, collaboration, and attempting to work towards a collective goal. I think that we all want to make Santa Barbara a better place because the decisions that are being made right now by the City Council and others impact youth the most out of anyone because we will see the results of these decisions over our lifetimes. Some issues that I am most passionate about are environmental issues because these tend to really show themselves over the course of the years as we grow up in Santa Barbara. And in particular, I'd like to focus on the renovations happening in Parma Park and how we can make those as sustainable as possible for the future, and the Modoc Road bike path and how we can make that a sustainable project. Another issue that's very important to me is nurturing a community. An example of how I have been a part of a community is serving in Alameda Park and volunteering every Thursday. Our homeless community in Santa Barbara needs a lot more attention than it's getting. And one of the things I hope to voice on Youth Council is the importance to aiding these people and creating a better future. I do have the time to serve on Youth Council and will be able to attend every one of their meetings and make time in my schedule to attend the special events. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have a question? Mr. Gutierrez.
What school do you go to?
Oh, sorry. I go to Laguna Blanca School, but previously I attended Santa Barbara High School for 2 years, and I'm a junior.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks very much. Anyone else for Youth Council? All right. Single Family Design Board. Architectural Board of Review. Nope, I'm thinking that's the whole thing. I just went back to the beginning, didn't I? Is there anybody here that's applying for a position I did not call out? Can you come forward, please? And which organization are you applying to?
Arts Advisory Committee.
Arts Advisory Committee. And your name, please?
Taylor Johnson.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Taylor Johnson. My pronouns are she, her. I am applying to be a member on the Arts Advisory Committee. I am a poet, performer, writer. I've been writing and performing for over 10 years, and I'm also an educator. I currently work at the Riviera Ridge School as an executive assistant to the head of school, and also an artist in residence. So art is very important to me. I recently moved here from New York. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. And after doing my education on the East Coast, my undergraduate at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, and my master's at NYU, I've now made Santa Barbara my home. And in making Santa Barbara my home, art is my passion. And as an educator who teaches arts integration, and as a person who believes in social change, this is the space that I think I need to be of service in my new home. And that is important to me because I believe in the intersectionality of community engagement and art. They go hand in hand. And art is a universal language for understanding and a universal catalyst for change. And I think I can support the Arts Advisory Committee in achieving those goals with my passion for art, my knowledge of art, as well as I have my own business that is in arts integration. So that's the reason that I think that I should be considered. I want to be a service. I've been a member of Get Lit. I've performed at the White House. It is not just a hobby, it is a lifestyle for me. So in anything that I do, I want to lead with the arts and lead with that catalyst for social change and understanding. And I've done it before, and I was encouraged to apply by the executive director of the Santa Barbara County Arts Council. So I am showing up here today and very much looking forward to be of service in my new home. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Gutierrez has a question.
Yes, thank you for applying. Where can I see your work?
You can see my work at taylorjohnson.com, TAYLLOR Johnson, JOHNSON.com, and my business is sisterhoodverb.com. that's where all my art is.
Thank you.
All right, very good. And I miss anybody else out there? All right, thank you. Go to council and staff communications, council member engagements, Mr. Gutierrez.
I think I covered most everything earlier, but I did want to say that a very good friend and supporter, Molly Culver, is leaving Santa Barbara. So I just want to thank her for all the support, and she's going to be missed. And tonight's her last night here, so if you're all inclined, we're going to meet at the Tully. So other than that, I wish her the best.
All right, very good. Anyone else? Did the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable Awards last night, including we had the Mayor's Award that went to Special Olympics champion, which was pretty cool. And then the coolest thing of all was hanging out with the youngest person in town on Saturdays was Chubby Checker. And Chubby is an amazing, he's a force. And I've never seen that many Santa Barbara's maintain a smile for 2 hours nonstop. The guy was amazing. So they're very cool. Had a lot of people out on Ken Burdeo Street, hundreds of people. Very, very entertained, and that was a good show. And with that, we'll see you guys in just a few hours. Call it 9 a.m., same time, same channel. We're adjourned.